Today we're taking a look at this 12-volt refrigerator. Now it also has freezer functionality, but it's not one of the ones that's like refrigerator on one side, freezer on the other, and then never does a really good job either way. Now this one is one device on the inside, and you set the temperature. It can be at refrigerator temperatures or it can be all the way down to freezer temperatures. It does whatever you want it to do by just the touch of a button up there on the control panel. So I was gonna buy me one of these after my experience I had last year. We were in Colorado at our off-grid cabin in the mountains, and what we typically do when we go is we have a large ice chest that has massive thick walls on the side, so it can keep ice, at least keep the inside cold, for at least 7 days. But what I would usually do is just refill it with ice every week. Well, last year we ran into an issue with that because the whole town that's near us was out of ice. Like, you couldn't get ice anywhere. You couldn't get it at the grocery store, you couldn't get it at the gas stations, nobody had ice. That started to become a real big issue for us. So we even went 30 minutes further looking for ice. They didn't have ice. We ended up, I think, an hour and a half away, something like that, when we finally found some ice. And then we had to turn around and come home with that. And it was just a huge mess. Luckily, that was toward the end of our trip. I said when I got home, I was gonna buy me a 12-volt refrigerator, and we were not messing with trying to find ice. That's it, I was done with ice. So now it's winter, summer's coming up. I was preparing to get ready for any summer trips we had, and this company here offered to send me a 12-volt ice chest to try it out, see if I liked it. And I jumped at the chance because it's probably what I would have ended up buying anyway. So they sent me this, I'm checking it out. I've actually already checked it out and ran it through its paces, and I've got to say I've been very happy with this. It's going to do exactly what we want to do when we are on our trips. I mean, this probably will eliminate ice chests almost altogether for us. We go to the beach, we just take trips, and I'm always buying ice, and I get sick and tired of trying to find ice or buy ice, especially when we could have something like this that's clean. You put everything you need inside of it, you plug it in, and it's cold. And it doesn't use very much electricity at all, about 45 watts when it is running. It actually doesn't run that often, especially if you're not opening and closing it a lot. So I've been really happy with it, and I'm going to show you some of the features and why I think pretty much everybody should have one of these. So this one, I was surprised it actually came with a 110 watt wall outlet adapter. So that was really cool. If you're traveling, you go to a hotel, you can take it out, plug it in. I mean, that is a really cool feature that I didn't even think about really. Then we have just the regular 12-volt accessory plug that you would plug into your car. Every one of our vehicles has 12-volt accessory plugs in them. This SUV has one that's just right here, and we could just plug this thing in and it would be no problem. We could carry it with us anywhere we want to go. And as you can see, it's not huge. It holds a good amount, pretty much everything we'd probably want. I mean, this is a very small storage compartment in this SUV because we have 3 rows. So we don't have much space in here when we're using it. And this doesn't take up hardly anything. There's a lot of space back here behind it. We could easily fit luggage in here with this. So if you're not running it on your vehicle though, you could easily plug it into something like that power station that I have over there. That's what I'm going to use today to kind of go through all the features of this. I'm just going to plug it into that power station, which would probably run this thing for quite some time, probably an entire day maybe. It uses very little power, and then of course if you have a power station, you can have a solar panel on it, basically run this thing endlessly. That's our plan in Colorado. When we're off grid, we're going to just have that thing on a solar panel, plug it in. We shouldn't have any issues finding power for this thing. And again, it barely pulls any power. It took me about 15 minutes to get this thing from room temperature, which was about 75 degrees when I did it, all the way down to 38 degrees. And I have a thermometer in here, recorded the same exact temperature that the control panel had, and that would be again from room temperature. If we brought this to the grocery store and we had some stuff we need to put in it, you could just toss that in here. Now you're adding cold items in. It's kind of like adding ice in an ice chest. You put the cold items in, turn this thing on, it would come down to temperature even faster. So let's go ahead and get this thing turned on, let you see some of the features of it. So I just plugged this thing in. As you can see here, it says it's 60 degrees right now. I think I have it set, okay, it's set at 40. I would probably run the refrigerator, if I was going to use this as a refrigerator, at around 38. But this thing goes all the way down to -8, I believe it said. -8. Yeah, that's it. As you see right now, it says max because it's not down to temperature yet, so it automatically kicks on to max cooling, which basically puts all the power this unit has to cooling this down quickly. And then you can use this feature that's here to go off of max. It has an eco mode. So once it hits temperature, it can run in eco mode, and then it just barely runs the compressor to just keep it nice and cool. But it saves you a lot of power and makes your battery last that much longer. If you click and hold the buttons, you can, pretty quickly move through it. You don't have to just keep clicking it. Usually I would use this as a refrigerator at about 38 degrees. It's got a nice amount of space on the inside, got a really good seal around it. It's got a little chain to keep the door from going too far. It even has some information over here on the left side. But yeah, everything we would need for probably a good week. We would normally go get groceries like once a week, something like that when we're out camping, so this would probably be pretty good to hold all of that. I may end up getting me a second one of these so we can keep it at the off-grid cabin, so I can have one set as a refrigerator and one set as a freezer, mainly because, again, they don't use that much power, and this would end up being like a perfect setup for us there. Another thing I like about this thing is it's not heavy. So our big, huge, massive ice chest that we have to put tons of ice in is just really, really heavy. And then when we have groceries in it or all that water and all that ice, it just tears the back up trying to get that thing in and out of the vehicle, or even moving it around. I usually have to pick it up with a dolly. This thing right here gives us almost the same amount of space. We don't have to pack it with ice and water and everything else. It just has its stuff in there. It keeps it nice and cold, and it's not heavy at all. It's got these really easy handles to grab on the side, and this thing right here without anything in it is very light. No trouble at all to move around. But again, even with a whole thing of waters or drinks or something in here, it's not going to be that heavy. So that's another big plus for me, especially as I'm getting older. I did test this by putting some drinks and things like that in it and let it run. And like I said, once it got down to temperature, it didn't take very long to get the drinks cold either. And it ran all night long with no problem off of one of my smaller power stations. I do plan on doing a test with this on how long this thing will run on a 100 amp hour 12.8 volt battery. So keep an eye out for that video that I'll put on the channel. I'm expecting at least a couple days. Super quiet. I don't know if you can hear it in the video, but there's just a little kind of fan noise. I think it is the compressor running, but it just sounds like a very light fan. So if you have this in the back of your vehicle and you're driving, or you've got people in the vehicle, you're not going to know this thing's running. Will not interrupt you or conversations or anything else. Very, very quiet. Easily sleep through this thing running in a very silent cabin. I don't think you'd even hear this. I'm, like I said, extremely happy with it. Everything that I've tested on it and played with has worked out just great. And man, I'm going to be so happy this coming summer to not have to be chasing down ice. I mean, this thing's going to pay for itself over the summer just in ice. But not having to have ice, not having to drag around this huge ice chest just to dump it all the time, just to put more ice back in it, put it in the vehicle, take it out of the truck. I mean, yeah, this thing is just going to pay for itself in ice, but also headache and pain and everything else. I will put a link to this item down in the description of the video if you want to check it out. They do have many different colors to choose from. This one is just the one that they sent me. I didn't really care what color it was, so I had no preference, but they have some that are solid black or maybe matches your RV or whatever it is you want to put it in. They do also have a larger size, so if you want one that's a little bit bigger, it's actually not a whole lot bigger when it comes to the unit itself, but it does have more storage space on the inside. I think about 50% more maybe. So it is a bigger unit. When I go to get a second one of these, I may try out the larger unit so we can have one that's refrigerator, one that's a freezer, provide us the best of both worlds. I hope this information was helpful. Thank you very much for watching. Y'all take care.